Since I took one of these early morning hit the record button and go videos, you can see the sun is not anywhere near going up. Now Ace is here and he's running around a little bit, but I still get to this day, I still get people saying, why are you whispering? I've got a whole neighborhood sleeping. I've got my family sleeping. These are the moments, right, when you can reflect on life, right? You're not reflecting on life when you're being loud. You're not reflecting on life when you're being boisterous, right? You're reflecting on life in those quiet moments when all you can hear is the silence. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of some of those rooms they have, these vacuums that they can put you in where you hear nothing, right? Quietest rooms in the world, right? And most people cannot last, what's it, like 5 minutes or 15 minutes in one of those rooms? The silence is so great that you can hear the sound of your own heartbeat. And it drives people crazy, right? And maybe being alone with their thoughts and the sound of their own mortality, right? Being alone and hearing nothing but your heartbeat. Maybe that's a tough thing for people, right? Maybe these are the moments of self-reflection that people tune in for. It's not easy to take a look at your your past life and not pass judgment, right? If you haven't asked for forgiveness for things that you may have done in the past that were wrong, well, then you just haven't grown as a human being, right? We all have things that we regret, right? You often hear people say, if I had it all to do again, I wouldn't change a thing. And, I get that to a certain degree, right? But you have to learn from your past, right? Or you don't grow, right? If I had it all to do over again, I would have stayed clear of the booze, would have stayed clear of anything else, right, that impaired. But here's the deal, man. Maybe what we're doing is trying to tune out the silence, right? Maybe by drowning ourselves in alcohol or whatever. Maybe we're just trying to tune out the silence so that we don't have to face reality. And I've heard other rockers on other channels say that the reason why the Sunset Strip was soaked in booze and cheap smoke, right? Maybe the reason why we were soaked in those things is to try to ignore the reality of what we were in. The fact that most of us weren't making any money. The fact that, we often didn't know where our next meal was coming from. The fact that we were kind of trapped in a world where not many of us were going to get out successful. Some weren't going to get out alive, right? Like the Doors song, no one here gets out alive. Well, no one here gets out alive of this planet. And all we have is the ability to try and survive, right? Each day, get up and try and survive. That's what I'm doing right now. I could be sleeping right now, but I try to get a good night's sleep each night and get up early and do this work. This is therapeutic work. Don't get me wrong, this is therapy for me, and it's therapy for a lot of people that tune in. Some people like to tune in just to see Ace running in and out of the camera. And I get that, man. Maybe that's therapeutic for them, right? But man, these moments of self-reflection, I spent a lot of hours before I used to get up and turn the camera on. These are the moments where I'd be laying in bed and things from the past would pop into my head, and I would try to work through them. And why did I do that? Why did I become a musician? Why did I try to seek attention from the stage? And I think we all have similar reasons why we got into this, right? Maybe we came from broken homes. Maybe we didn't get the attention we wanted at home. Maybe we discovered we did get that attention when we got on stage. Or maybe we just saw, a lot of people saw videos of the Beatles and heard the girls screaming and wanted to be a musician for that, right? I don't know that musicians, young guys, have that mentality anymore. The drive to want to be somebody, right? The drive to want to get attention. I don't know if there's any young guys that watch this channel. Let me know in the comments why did you want to become a musician? Because to become a musician is to want to suffer. There's very few musicians that, have short periods where they, only made enough money to scrape by, and then they skyrocket to success. And here's another powerful truth. I've often thought about this. If you become a sideman, if you end up going on the road and backing somebody, or maybe you're just on the sidelines playing in local bars, you're gonna see people that are blowing up, that are making tons of money. And you may be thinking, wow, I'm better than that, right? This guy can barely play, or this guy can barely sing, or this guy's songs suck. So surely I should be able to make it. That, my friends, is the great trap. Look, MTV, music television back in the day, were filled with some great artists, right? But it was also filled with a lot of absolute garbage, bro. Total garbage. So much so that me and my friend would sit on the couch, just like Beavis and Butthead, and we'd see something that rocked, and we'd be like, yeah, that's rock. And then something would come on, and we'd be like, what is this? This sucks. Yeah, this sucks. Yeah, man. Oh, man, look at this. It's in those moments where you go, well, I can do that. This has got to be easy. Money for nothing. Chicks for free. Right? That's the great trap. The great trap was there were some that were elevated to a false level of superiority. There are plenty of people in the music business, and maybe the country music business is one of the greatest, I don't know what the word would be, but progenitors of what would be the term I would use? Inferiority, or subpar or less than stellar. Perhaps country music is the greatest one to promote, let's say, mediocrity. Promoting mediocrity. There's your term. There's not many country singers that you go, that guy's an amazing singer with an incredible range. A lot of them have that nasally, affected, overly country style of singing. And let me tell you, many of those singers are not even from the South. There's plenty of them, and I've seen them out there, and they're from the Midwest, or some of them are even out from California, and they're singing with a Southern accent, or maybe they're from Australia. Yeah, they're from Australia, mate. And they're singing with a Southern accent. Now, look, man, I get it. Australia has areas that are country. California has areas that are farming and farmers. Oklahoma has farmers, right? So it's not to say that they don't belong. They belong, but most of the country music industry are not guys that can play like Keith Urban or Brad Paisley. Most of the guys that are fronting, big touring acts, right? Most of those guys know 3 chords on the guitar or 4 chords. Most of those guys aren't great players. Most of those guys probably aren't great singers either. And it's just like, Frank Zappa had said something in the past about, popular music isn't about selling excellence. It's about selling mediocrity. It's about selling pickup trucks. It's about selling beer. It's about selling booze. It's about selling a lifestyle, right? And I would say that the majority of people don't turn on the radio dial seeking something that makes them feel inferior. They don't turn on the radio dial to hear something stellar or something with amazing technique or an amazing composer. Most people don't turn on the radio dial to listen to Beethoven or Mozart or Stravinsky or Coltrane or Charlie Parker. Now, there used to be a time where they did. I'm not even sure if there's a jazz radio station here, in where I'm at in Central Florida. There was a time where I would put on the local jazz station in Richmond, Virginia. When I was a kid, I would put it on every night. And I would go to sleep to the sounds of Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk and Art Blakey and, John Coltrane and Wes Montgomery and, all of these guys. I would go to bed listening to that, hoping to soak up some brilliance, hoping to add something to my playing that I couldn't get listening to Dokken or Van Halen. Expanding your horizons, right? I don't think most people turn on the radio these days to try to expand their horizons or to possibly hear how inferior maybe their musical technique is. Now, there are exceptions, and musicians are the exception, but I'm talking about the everyday Joe, the guy that buys those concert tickets, the guy that streams those artists, the guy that puts on the country music station when he gets in his car. They're selling a lifestyle. So you could be on one of those gigs and you could be a better singer than the star. You could be a better musician than the star. You might even be better looking than the star. How many country music artists are amazingly good looking? And as Ace chimes in there, think about that. You know, you don't have many Elvises or Kip Wingers or Brett Michaels in country music these days. You got more Luke Combs and Jelly Rolls and average looking dudes than idols, like idols back in the day. These are all points to ponder, man. These are late night, early morning thoughts. Think about it, man. Think about it, the great trap of thinking, man, I'm better looking than that guy. Man, I can outsing that guy. Man, I'm a better player than that guy. That's what they want you to think, that you have a chance. That's the thing that reeled me in while watching MTV. I wasn't going, man, Iron Maiden's so great, man. I'd never be able to put together a band like that. That's a tall order, putting together a band of ringers like that, and you know, taking on, you know, metal and taking it into a new realm. But there were just as many haircut 100s and mediocre, weird bands where you're like, what in the hell is this? Or the Talking Heads, who you could argue were great in their own way, but the musicianship was kind of spotty in some places, and this guy's not a great singer, and he's certainly not a pinup. So maybe I can do this. Maybe all I need to do is give it a try. Is it the great trap? Or is it just an inkling of hope in a desperate world where you're dying for affection? You're dying for attention. And that's why you pick up the damn guitar in the first place. These are all very deep thoughts to ponder very early in the morning.